The Trump administration is walking away from a long-standing military board that works on defense initiatives with Canada. It claims this country is not meeting its military spending commitments. The CBC's Aaron Collins is in Washington with more on the defense board.
Yeah, Ian, I think the short answer is that it's basically a working group created, way back in 1940. And as you mentioned there, it is focused on sort of coordinating North American defense between Canada and the U.S. And it was actually created by some real political heavyweights back in the day, Prime Minister Mackenzie King on our side of the border and U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt. And you might not have heard too much about this board over the years, but it has seen Americans and Canadians working together to secure the continent. And today's move by the U.S. is really hard for some to understand, including former MP John McKay, who once served as the Canadian co-chair of the board.
My initial reaction is stupid foolishness. Once again, the Americans want to talk to themselves instead of talking to other people. And this is just a regrettable decision on the part of the Americans, because it was a useful organization for 80 plus years.
So useful organization. And Ian, just to give you a real concrete example of some of the work this board was doing behind the scenes, it's where NORAD was created, right? So there's a real good example of how this board was used. So the North American Aerospace Defense Command, which, it's been monitoring the airspace above Canada and the U.S. for like 7 decades. So, kind of a big deal.
And so why now? Why is the U.S. doing this now?
Yeah, look, that's the big question for sure. A reminder that all of this is coming after U.S. Undersecretary of War Elbridge Colby posted on social media that Canada has failed to make credible progress on its defense commitment. So look, there are tensions between the U.S. and Canada in this area, long-standing to a certain degree. The U.S. and specifically the Trump administration, they've long sort of been bothered by NATO countries on this topic, including Canada, accusing us of not spending enough on defense. As to why today was the day to press that point, Ian, it's harder to say, and it's difficult to really say with any degree of certainty what might have instigated this. It's a social media post, after all. We have reached out to the U.S. Defense Department on this. They don't have a lot to add, and experts we spoke to in the area also really looking for clarity on this issue.
I wouldn't read too much into the timing of it. I think Canada has been clear about meeting its NATO defense spending targets. It hit 2% earlier this spring. It's on track to hit the increased targets. And so I'm not sure there's a specific reason behind the timing versus this is more just indicative of broader strain in the bilateral relationship.
So lots of questions still around this today, Ian. I will say Canada's defense minister has responded today. He wrote in a statement that Canada will work with trusted partners who are ready to work with us, always remaining ready to come to the table for constructive discussions about the best way to strengthen mutual defense and security. And of course, all of this coming as the two countries are, working to get a new free trade agreement done as well. So, Ian, it's just kind of another example, really, of how the status quo between the U.S. and Canada, it's really up in the air these days.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
You bet.